Hey guys, I'm David from Lightning Boy Studio, and this is part 6 of our tutorial series on how to make a Toon Shader in Blender EEVEE. Today I want to show you how to make what I call a 2D rim light. So essentially the idea is it works the same as a standard 3D backlight, but as you move your camera around your character, instead of getting this very blasted lighted area, the rim light will follow the edge of your character. So it's going to look a bit 2D. And the cool thing is it will still respond to light direction and casted shadows and everything. And afterwards, I want to address a question we've been getting a lot on the comment section, which is how to apply normal maps to your character using this Toon Shader. It's actually pretty simple, so I want to go a bit further and show you how you can sculpt details right inside Blender, generate the normal maps using cycles, and then apply back these details to your low resolution mesh to get even better looking rim lights. So hope you guys are excited, and without further ado, let's get started. Alright, welcome back. So I've opened up my scene, and as you can see I have my character here from our project Dinomancers. It's actually a Dinomancer, which are the bad guys in the show. And before I get started, there's something I want to show you, sort of a bonus daily tip or whatever, but some people have been telling me that I should look into the Node Wrangler. And this is an add-on that you can activate in Blender that adds some shortcuts to really improve the workflow while you're working in the node editor, and it's really awesome. So I want to show you some of the shortcuts I use so you're not surprised when you see them happening on screen. So if you want to activate it, you can just go to Edit, Preferences, Add-on, and then Node Wrangler, and make sure to click on it here, and you can see the full list of hotkeys here, but I'm going to show you the ones I use the most. So let's say I were to create I don't know, 2 RGB nodes, and I want to mix them together. I can just use Control-Shift right-click to create a mix node, so pretty fast. Then if you want to switch them up, you can just press Alt-S and switch them up, and if you unconnect it, you can press Alt-S a couple of times, and it's going to cycle through it. If you feel lazy, you can use the Lazy Connect feature, which is Alt right-click, and it's going to automatically connect it to the first input that makes sense. And the cool thing is you don't even have to click on the circle of any of this. Just click somewhere around the node, and then Alt right-click and release somewhere around this one. It's going to be connecting them. And if you need to be more precise, you can just use Alt Shift right-click and select the one you want to connect it to. So that's pretty cool. And my absolute favorite feature is Control-Shift-Click, which lets you preview the node you're working on in the material output. So basically what we've been doing so far, just debugging things, and it's pretty nice. The thing I'm a bit sad about is that this particular shortcut doesn't work when you are inside a node group, like here. Basically, what we've been doing so far in this entire series. So I won't be able to use it, but just know that it exists and it's pretty cool. So let's get started. First, this is the shader we're trying to do. You see this effect of the rim light following around your character. This is the desired effect. And what we have so far done in the tutorial series is more like this. So you can move this around, but as you move the camera, it doesn't follow. So I'm going to show you how to reproduce the previous effect starting from this one. And if you want to follow along, you can just go in the video description, and we'll drop a link to this shader so you can build it with me. So let me go in my node group here, press Tab, and find a place to start making the rim light. So I'm going to be creating a new frame, so Shift A, type in frame, and I will rename it to the rim light 2D. Okay, and bump the label size to 50. And so the plan is to use a Fresnel to generate the rim light, and then use our previous kick light as a mask. So everywhere that you see a white section here is going to be telling where the Fresnel can appear. So the Fresnel is going to be sticking on the edge because that's what a Fresnel does, but it's only going to be appearing in the white, so it's not going to be appearing on this side. I will need to rotate the light for it to appear. So that's the plan. Let's do this. I'm going to be pressing Shift A for now, and I'll need 2 color ramps. So Shift A, color ramp, and I'll duplicate it, put them into my frame, and I can connect them using Alt right click like I showed you. And I'm going to bring my group output, and we're going to be mixing these two together. Now, I like to use a shortcut I showed you previously. It's a bit glitchy when you use it with something that's inside of frames for some reason. It's a bit sad. Again, there's some glitches, but overall it's a pretty cool add-on. So we're mixing these 2 color ramps, and let us preview what we're doing. So as you can see, it looks like this. And what I want to do is change this to constant, so I can make a very sharp edge around the side here. And for this one, I just want to do something softer. So it will sort of give us a glow effect around the sharper one. And then what you can do is play with the factor, so it just appears very softly around the edge. And so you can either make it super soft or super sharp, depending on what you want. So now let's add some color to this. So just duplicate the mix node, change this to multiply by pressing U, and we'll make the factor 1. And then with this color, you can change it, because we're multiplying a black and white with this. So everything that's white is going to appear like this color. And already we can start creating some parameters. So let me duplicate this group input and place it inside the frame. So if I maximize, so I'm going to be using the create a new parameter for the color. So place into color here, and then for the softness, so the factor node of our first mix node, and I'm going to rename them. So the first one is going to be rim light 2D. Second one is going to be softness. And another thing we could play with is the size. So an easy way to play with the size is to play with this IOR setting here on the Fresnel. So I'm going to be plugging just underneath softness here. I'm going to be plugging into my IOR. Now the thing is that by default, when you play with this setting, when it's at 1, it's going to completely disappear. And then as you go higher, it's going to start appearing. So what I would like is that at 0, you don't see anything. So the easy way to do it is just to add simple math nodes just before. And so we're going to be adding 1. So what will happen is that as I feed 0 into this node, it's going to be adding 1 to it and then feed it to this thing here. So basically what it's receiving is 1 like before, but I'm just typing 0. So it makes more sense, because at 0 you don't see anything and you can increase it. Perfect. So, and the last thing I want to do is, actually not the last thing. The most obvious thing is that we need to mask this with our light, like I was telling you. So let's do that right now. To mask it, we'll need the color ramp from our backlight. So you see this color ramp here. We're going to be using this as a mask. So we need a new multiply node. I'm going to duplicate just this one. Going to do the job perfectly. And make sure the factor is at 1. And we're going to be connecting. So this color ramp here, just press Alt Shift right click. And then you can choose, pick the color output from your color ramp to color 2 from your multiply node. So you see how useful it is to connect things all the way across your network here using the node wrangler. Is pretty cool. So now it works. You can use it. It's been using it as a mask, so you can decide the direction. And the last thing I want to add is a way to offset the normals of our rim light, a bit like we've been doing, if you remember, in the metallic tutorial where we were offsetting the specular. So we'll do the same thing, but we'll offset the direction of the rim light to give it a bit more variety, because the Fresnel by default is sort of even all around the mesh. So will give us a way to change things up a bit. All right, so what we need is, by the way, if you want to maximize this, I don't know if you know, but it's Control Space, so pretty useful sometimes. So let me create a geometry node, because we'll need the normal here from our geometry, and then we're going to be doing some vector mat to it. So we need a vector mat, and we need a combine XYZ. So we're going to be just using the X and the Z. It's probably because of the way my characters are oriented, but I feel like when I play with the Y value, it doesn't do much that I like, so I just don't tend to use it. And we're going to be placing this into the second vector node, and my geometry node here, locate the normal output, play into the first vector of our vector mat. And this, maybe I should make some space, so this. Okay, and this is going to be replacing, or actually be plugging into the normal of our Fresnel. So just plug it in there. So by default, shouldn't do anything, but as I play with these settings, you see that I can sort of offset a bit direction. So it's subtle, but you can sort of play around with it. All right, and so the last thing we need to do is just to comp this back onto the entire network. So the way I'm going to do it for now, very simply, is just to change this to add and make the factor 1. And I'm going to be placing this in color 2, and the result of our compositing network so far in color 1, this in group output. And there you go. And so you see that the texture has appeared, and you have your light, but you might notice also that it's not reacting properly. And the reason is that we still have the kick light activated here. So you need to turn it all the way down to black so you can see the rim light underneath. So if you want to use a kick light, bump it up to the color you want, and just turn off the rim light 2D to black, and vice versa. So that's it for the rim light section. Now I'm going to show you how you can sculpt normal maps and add a bit more detail to your model. So let me just save up this thing right here so I don't lose anything. And so if you want to start sculpting, first locate what you want to sculpt on. So in my case, it's going to be my cloak. I'm going to be duplicating it. Just press escape so it stays in the right place. Rename it cloak original and move it to a new collection. So press M, new collection. I'll rename this sculpting. And so I can turn off my Dinomancer's collection altogether and just concentrate on this thing here. Now I'm going to go to my modifier panel. In my case, there's some modifiers I need to delete. As you can see, there's the first solidify modifier that's being used to generate the thickness of the cloth. So I'm going to delete it. This one is used for the outline. And I'm going to bump up the subdivs to 5 so that I have plenty of geometry to work with, and just apply this. Actually, not apply it right now, sorry. One thing I want to do first is delete these little, this makes it look more rough, but I actually don't need this for the to paint sculpt the normal. It's going to create some problems when I bake it, so I'm just going to be selecting this using L, and then Control I and delete all those little tidbits here. And now I'm ready to apply this. Perfect. So now I can duplicate this, Shift D again, I'll call it sculpted. And the reason I'm doing this is because once I'm finished sculpting, I need something that Cycles can reference back to so it can calculate the difference and create a normal map. So you can hide the original, and I'm going to turn off the wireframe. I'm going to go in sculpt mode. And the tool I like to use for this is Draw Sharp. If I press N, I can access the tool settings. I'm going to go to fall off, change this to sharper, and make sure you have symmetry on so that when you paint, it affects both sides. Perfect, so maybe a strength of 0.4, and I'm just gonna paint a few wrinkles. I'm not trying to do anything realistic. I just want to add a bit more detail. So I'm gonna add something here, maybe a bit here. And if I increase this to 0.6, maybe I want to have something underneath here. And something in the back, so maybe, yeah, this will do. Okay, so now that I'm done, I can switch back to object mode. And I'm trying to paint as little as possible and just do it in one stroke. That way it generates less problem when I bake it. But I mean, maybe you'll need more wrinkles and more stuff and smooth things out. This is not a sculpting tutorial, but I just want to show you quickly what you can do very easily to add some details to it. So when you're ready to bake, make sure to go in your shader editor here and create an image texture, because it needs to know where to put the bake normal to. So I'm going to press new, call it Dynomancer Normal Maps Tutorial, and change this to 4K, unclick alpha, don't really need it. And so make sure this is selected, click on sculpted, shift click on original, then change this to cycles, and go to bake, normal. Then, is there any way I can make up more space? Okay. Okay, so click on selected to active. Make sure your ray distance is not 0. Sometimes it's 0 by default. So in my case, I'm gonna make it 0.2. You can play with the margin too. I think I'm gonna leave it at 2 pixels. So now it's done. Just press on bake. Oh, I think you need to unhide it. So sculpt it, original, make sure this is selected, click on bake. And now you wait. All right, so to finish baking, what you can do to preview it is go to Shift F10 and type in normal map tutorial. So as you can see, it's baked. There are some issues with it, but in my case, it's going to do the job. The reason is those problems here. You see these weird colors here, that's not normal. It should look more like just pure purple and red and green. The reason is there's some overlap here that's causing some problems. So what I'm going to do is just to paint over these areas in Photoshop to fix it. Actually, I can show you. So let's just go Shift F10, image, save as, and save this image. All right, so you just create a new layer, and I'm simply going to be painting over the problematic areas. Perfect. I'm going to be, I think this is problematic too. Okay, so let's just save. And now if I go to my shader editor and press Alt-R, it's going to reload it. So you can see it's fixed now. And I don't need this anymore. So I can just turn on my Dynomancer again. Go back to EEVEE. And I can connect it. So as you'll notice, there's no way, no place to connect it right now. You need this little purple circle that we don't have. And it's actually located at the very left on our diffuse node here. You can see this normal. So just find any group input and just create a normal input. That way it's gonna appear at the bottom. And so you have your normal map. You need normal map node for it to work. Connect color to color. Make sure that your color space is in a non-color, otherwise it's not gonna work. And then connect this to normal. So right away, it should start affecting our main light. So you see Here, this is a detail that we painted, and if you go in the back, you see these. This is something we painted too that wasn't there before. The thing is that the Fresnel itself is not reacting to it. So as you can see, it's sort of it's not seeing it, and it's actually normal because if I inspect this, if you remember, we told it to use the normal from the geometry, so it doesn't even know that the normal map exists in this little system. So what we need to do is just add an extra parameter that we can play with that says, hey, use the other one instead. So what I'm going to be doing is create a mix node. And we're going to be mixing the new normal with the old normal. And this is what's going to be going into the vector map node instead. So there we go. And this mixing factor here, we just need to make a new parameter with it. So we're going to be calling it use nm for normal map to the rem. Move it up one. So now it should be working. So as you can see, if I turn this on, it's going to be taking it into account. So pretty cool. And if you want to play with the normal map, just the base normal map affected by the key light, you can also play with the strength here. And you can sort of turn it off completely. So there you go. That completes the tutorial. In fact, that pretty much completes the entire Toon Shader series. These are all the parts that we have planned. There are a lot more tutorials coming when I explore environments, always in the stylized art style. I want to show you how to do facial, 2D effects kind of stuff. So it'll be pretty exciting. Make sure to subscribe if you like our work. Again, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.